What? Oh, okay. Yeah, this is I was thinking there's some current world events that's going on. Um we have uh we have Pride Month, which is starting yesterday, I think.
Yes, congratulations
I
to
mean
all
that
the
that is
LGBT cuties. Shouts out to all of them. You fought
yes.
for a lot,
It's
and
well, it's not even LGBT anymore. It's there's like there's like seven or eight of them.
well,
Do you know what
then
they are? Because I don't.
no, and frankly, they can, but yeah, shouts out to those people.
I don't know, but yes. So there's that. There is Ukraine, and then
Oh, right,
there's
we can't forget about Ukraine. Hearts out, guns out.
yeah, for real.
Dicks out for Ukraine.
Yeah, I really do not know what the rest of the LGBTQ thing is. I remember that it used to be LGBTQ. I remember thinking earlier today. Um,
I think it's
so it's not.
LGBTQ plus, but I didn't realize math was a sexuality.
That's funny. I suppose the plus is in order, uh, being as though that does make sense. Because there's like five other letters. So what I do
Is
want
that
to
in
say.
order of importance? Is that acronym in order of significance?
Oh, I don't know. Well, okay, let's figure out what LGBTQ stands for real quick.
Yeah, you
Lesbian,
wanna let's
bisexual,
gay,
transsexual, and
gay.
gay.
It's LG. Oh yeah, LGBT. Yeah, LG, bi, transsexual, and then the plus. And then you got I. Oh yeah, you
Yes.
can't forget binary people and androgynous people. And are we forgetting anybody else?
Doesn't
But yeah, the plus
that.
is for math.
That's funny.
I guess
Hey,
at
but
some
I
point.
was I was thinking earlier today, if knowing that we were going to have this conversation, what I would say on behalf of it being Pride Month, if anything, is
I mean, I'm glad they have a
more.
month. I feel like it's really good for people to have a month. A lot of the times, not we, some people or some holidays only get a day, but other times a month's needed.
It's not like you're doing something that won't brighten up the time spectrum. It's not like I'm trying like Lee Farrick's Day or St. Patrick's Day.
Right.
Like like that's like one color. Imagine having all of the colors as your symbol. That's a lot.
Yeah,
So
it's
I mean
representative.
I don't know.
It's representative.
Well, hey, I really was I was wanting to say though, dude, there's a squeaking noise in this car and it's driving me nuts. But okay, so it was not that long ago at all. It was in the late 80s and I believe perhaps early 90s. It was a very short, relatively speaking, time ago that varying from state to state that and at one point I believe it was all encompassing across all states that the engagement between two men of a particular kind uh, was illegal in America. In America, that was illegal. That you could be thrown in jail.
Yeah, we can't forget the 50s. That was pretty bad.
No, but that's what I'm trying to tell you, Elijah. It wasn't just the 50s. I'm saying for sure it was late 80s because I remember looking this up not that long ago. It was late 80s that like pretty advanced civilized movements that were happening. But
Yeah, but this gets in, like morality and like who really was right and who really was wrong. You know what I mean? Like,
okay.
Who made those laws? Who made those laws? Was it a Christian or was it just somebody out to get somebody?
Yeah, this is we're getting into territory that requires high resolution, like use of terminologies and scrupulous word usage because okay, so let me start off by let me try to answer that question as to the best of my ability. There was a book named, I think it's called the King Jesus Gospel, the King Jesus something. Anyways, this was like a conservative kind of minded mid-range, and it's a very well-respected book, but it talked about how in Christianity you have the progression, the evolution of, because the church is the ecclesia, which is the governing assembly or the governing body. And so my understanding of advanced theology, meaning like what I mean by that is theology at its core is that what happened with the cross and what happened at the place of the crucifixion was that the sins of the world were placed upon Christ. And that at that point, that Jesus took on our failings to aim at what we should. So we're being very exact in language right here. Like, this is not me being poetic. This is me using the language as the language was originally meant. Sin is an archery terminology, meaning that you're not hitting what you're aiming at. And so, so basically, if you accuse somebody of sin, like if I accused you of sin, I would be like, you sinned, you stupid idiot, meaning you didn't hit what you were aiming at. So the term sin was a completely secular world word. So when Christ was crucified on the cross, okay, this is what the writer of the book was saying. And I would encourage anybody to look that book up, is that the progression of the church is something that they learn throughout time on how to behave, on how to act, and that the church is a ever living, evolving model and structure of Christ redemptive works and all of that. And so, like, in the same way that Peter had the dream about the meat falling from the sky and all of a sudden,
well, like what you're saying is like you even have some pastors nowadays that just choose not to read out of the Old Testament. Like that's just a choice they have for some of their sermons.
Well, dude, okay, so it's this again. I appreciate you you being patient in in this process. So there's a verse in Leviticus, and that verse in Leviticus states that if one man is with another man, this is how it says in our King James Bible. If a man lays with another man as if he was a woman, then kill him. That's what it says in our King James Bible. However, my understanding of the original verse is vastly different, and anybody should be able to hear the difference between these two things. Hear the difference between me saying these two statements. Okay, hear me saying the first statement. If a man lays with another man as if he was a woman, then kill him, stone him, Okay, that's one thing. Now, hear the accurate version of what I'm saying. And this is in Leviticus. This is old school, like caveman, like beginning of like civilization, putting stuff together, like just raw, hard people that are just like, just they're hungry and they're just murderous, anyways. So this is a rough part of our human history. I digress. The first sentence, you heard that one. Here's the second one. If a man lays with a young boy, like 12, as if he were a woman, has sex. If a man lays with a young boy, this is what the word means. The word means prepubescence. That's the original word. The original word means that if a man lays with a prepubescent boy, as if he were a woman, then stone him. Those are two very different sentences. And yet our Bibles ended up with the first translation, which is inaccurate, AF, and not the second one. So anyways, so there's like 6 verses in all of Scripture. It's a huge book that addresses the acts of men amongst one another. So like Jesus didn't say anything at all, which means that was just like, like you would think that that he would have, you know. It's just like, you would think that like if that was an issue that he was concerned with, that it would have made it. That somebody, okay, and this is something else as to my current understanding. Jesus with John. So this is my current understanding. There's 4 words, I believe, for love in the Bible. And they chose the spiciest one to explain the relationship between Jesus and John. They could have used one of the other 4 words, which would have been a more docile, more whatever word, but chose to use the one for love that would have been like the most like, oh, wow, like, my goodness, like that's a spicy, the word for the relationship between Jesus and John. And I mean, dude, I was trying today to remember everything that I wanted to say in regards to Pride Month. But the thing is, I mean, perhaps I can end on this note. Perhaps this will really tie together like the true aspect of things, like and where the true, real problems are. Hopefully, this will illustrate and illuminate that. So, in Ukraine now, the pastor, the Pope of Ukraine, whoever that dude is, there's like that guy, excuse me, not Ukraine, the opposite, the other one of Russia. The Russian Pope is using as an example of a reason for the invasion of Ukraine, that the justification for the invasion of Ukraine, one of his reasons that he stated, quote unquote, is gay pride parades. That the Western influence of the Western world, such as gay pride parades. So like, if nothing illustrates where real anti-Christian problems actually emerge, to where psychologically the emerging properties of thoughts that are unchristian, that we need to nip in the bud or whatever, like that is the emergent property of something that we need to look at in ourselves. Like that like, oh wow, another nation is murdering another nation, and one of the reasons that the church said is gay parades. That's the justification. It's I live in Texas. I live in West Texas, and the extent. I know I said that I would end on that note, but this is what really grinds my gears more than anything else, is to be accused. So when I study theology, when I try to figure things out about this book, about this ancient like human God whatever thing, amen, or hallowed, whatever. Whenever I do that, whenever I try to understand that, I do not ever like consult a political party in referencing to try to understand my theological basis for my understanding. So to be accused ever of being like a left, like, of being like progressive, or being like influenced by the left or the right, either one. I'm just like, excuse me, I'm trying to grasp complicated things that are outside of the political spectrum. And to be accused of my political anything having any bearing on my theological understanding, it's just like those two things should not be mixed. So somebody might accuse me of being left-leaning or something like that. I'm like, excuse me, I don't even know why on earth, like, how dare you put those two things together whenever I'm trying my absolute hardest to really grasp, the essence of things, and then to be accused of a political, you know what I mean? To be accused of it's so, I mean, dude, I gave my best shot at doing justice to the LGBTQ Pride Month thing just now, and that was my best effort. So if you want to move on to the next subject, we certainly can.
Yeah, I was gonna say, so for today, we kind of have an interesting topic from conversation. We were talking, and we decided that I was going to take the reins for today, and
Oh yes.
the topic of conversation I was kind of thinking about was a movie, more specifically the new Batman starring Robert Pattinson and a few other pretty famous actors. And there wasn't any particular reason for wanting to talk about this movie, but as a fan of Batman and as a fan of DC Comics, I have a little bit of knowledge on some of this stuff. So I've always been a Batman fan. On top of the fact that it was, in my opinion, just like before we get into anything, I thought it was pretty awesome. So I feel like it's a damn near a 3-hour movie. There's a lot we can talk about,
I want you to know, man.
characters.
Yes, I do agree. It was. I do agree. When did you watch it? Last night?
I watched it. I watched it early this morning at work. Fresh on my mind.
Yes. Is there anything you want to add, or did you want me to take a go at it?
No, I was gonna say, I mean, if we just want to, I can start talking about kind of what I thought about the movie and stuff
Let's
like that.
do that. Yes.
Yeah. I
Go
mean,
ahead.
going into it, I was told a few different things, I guess if you want to say. Like my brother had saw it pretty early on and he had his own opinions about it. He thought that it was a solid movie, but they kind of missed the mark on the Riddler character. And then there were some other aspects that he disliked, but overall he said it was a solid 8 out of 10. And then me going in, I that was kind of like what I had heard, you know what I mean? So going in, I had high expectations for the movie, but nothing in particular that I was like really excited for. So there was a lot, and I can think of this one particular scene where the Riddler, he hires these like henchmen, I guess, and it's this video that plays, and then Batman realizes that these dudes are working for him, and then you see the next scene of him like trying to beat all, and that like to me was like I don't know what to say there, like a almost an like not a reach, but like a expansion on the character of what you would think of like who the Riddler could be, and a lot of the directorial and artistic choices that were made in the movie I thought were incredibly impressive. I mean, world building like was really 10 out of 10.
Yeah.
Like you really get to see this like Gotham City that's almost in like a present state of mind, but almost like styled in the 90s. So you see like all of the like aged and looked like vehicles and scenery, but you still have the technology of like almost like a Dark Knight movie you would. But yeah, I mean, more specifically, like with the characters, I really thought it was cool how they were kind of having Batman take this almost like pre Dark Knight or pre like he is Batman, like this is him in his starting days when he's starting to get familiar with some of these villains, and you can see his interactions with the Penguin in the movie. Is that's a really good example of one of them where this is like I think one of his first times ever meeting the guy, and this is compared to like any other media where you're talking about maybe like video games or other movies, he's basically familiarized himself with every other villain or every other character in the I guess in the city. And so you kind of get to see like this Batman Begins, but like in a more literal sense, like he's literally getting a start in kind of all of his detective work and in his like beginnings as a superhero, and kind of like especially as a character you see him go through this change of like how he has a super selfish like almost personal motivation of vengeance. And then there's even a part in the movie where he makes this like self-recognized, like he says something about change, and then he realizes that it's not just about vengeance, it's about helping people. And that's what that was like. Oh, he says he realizes the effect he's had on the city and it's not a good one. And he says something like that. And it's really powerful because
Well, can you do more to try to illustrate when you were talking about?
oh, this is towards the end of the movie. You mean like more specifically when he's talking about his change?
Yes.
So I guess this is like a continuation of the Riddler and Batman's relationship throughout the movie. Is this towards the end of the third act? Riddler kind of says something to Batman specifically. He's like, "You inspired me, or you're the reason I'm doing all of this." He says something.
Right. You're talking about the prison scene to where
and then
Batman tells the Riddler that like he's like trash.
Well, then and then it's also the scene towards the end where he's having this monologue with himself about like change and then trying to become a better person because it's like the exit monologue.
Yes, that's where I don't remember what you're talking about, but
I can't quite remember if he's reading a note or if he's maybe it's like right before he talks to Selena Kyle at the end of the movie. Kind of like with their relationship, Riddler and the Batmans is you see almost like this cat and mouse game that's being played, but the Riddler's more of like this. He's portrayed in the movie as like a Zodiac killer character, but
yeah,
you see this towards the end of this movie, like him, they instead of like being on parallel paths, they start to differ because of the like the violent and decisive choices the Riddler makes, and almost like it's kind of like very obvious the choices Batman making, but the heroic choices Batman chooses to make, where he's saving people and he's trying to be super altruistic, and like that's almost
yeah.
like the
My understanding of well, I don't want to.
I mean, if you I was gonna say if you want to ask a question, go ahead. What if you had something you wanted to specifically like with what we were just talking about?
Yeah, I suppose both of us aren't always super fantastic questions, but it's more so me illustrating my understanding or my perspective in combination with your understanding. So the moment for me that made me realize what movie I was watching, if that makes sense, that
Right, right.
I could show anyone an excerpt of that portion of the movie, and then it really encompassed the uh, basically what that movie was they're in the church, and there's people in the congregation below, and then the camera pans up, and then the pastor is standing behind the guardrail. I think his hands are on the guardrail. I digress. And there's a giant window behind him, and then you hear the noises of approaching vehicles, of
No,
approaching
that
cars.
that person is the Riddler.
Okay. Yes. Yes. But I mean, for the sake of what I'm saying, I guess yes. Okay. But and what happens is okay. So the camera pans up. You hear the noises, and your mind goes to this place of the window behind the pastor is about to be busted out
Right,
because
right.
somebody is going to fly a car through that window and and do that. But then the camera angle changes, and you see it's amazing that they did this. And
Oh,
then you
it
see
was a
the car
beautifully shot scene.
bust through like the door, like a very realistic, a very practical. If somebody were to drive a car through a church, that's what it would look like, you know. Um, but they made you think, okay, here's this Batman movie. Somebody's about to drive a car through a window of the top. But then I think the camera pans down or does something, and they very realistically what it would look like if someone actually did that. Shows them breaking in a vehicle through the church, and then the congregation scatters.
Exactly, exactly. And honestly, to bounce off kind of what you were saying, like that in and of itself, what you just said, the realism. And if
Yeah,
we want to take a second to almost like put this on a pedestal of its own, like, and
yeah,
I feel like this is maybe a director choice or a story choice, but it almost feels like this is a Batman that exists in real life, and these are consequences
yeah.
and actions
Yeah,
or villains that are responsible of
I
a
thought of Russia.
vigilante. Do
I
what?
thought of Russia. The whole time I
Russia.
thought of Russia. The whole
Okay,
time
yeah,
I thought of somebody that was just fed up, that because Russia it's oh gosh. I imagine that's
like a
going to be
Russian
horrifying.
superhero.
That is exactly what I thought of. And I
Okay,
think
yeah. But that,
and I
yeah,
think
like almost like what you're saying. It's like the realism, and a great example is like his Batmobile. Like
yeah,
there was a lot of backlash to it, but like that's one part of it. But then you also have like his interactions with like even the Riddler, like how he has this different portrayal. Now they definitely
very
borrowed
different.
a lot from the
Yeah.
Zodiac Killer, and we can talk about that later on if you'd like to. But like more specifically, like with his facilities and with the like almost like on like the street level approach to like
Yes,
the people around him. It just felt so genuine, compared to
yes,
like
that's
when you see
yeah,
other superhero movies and it's like, oh, this is a superhero movie and these are
right.
superheroes.
Okay, so here's this art piece that is in front of me. And what exactly is the artist trying to say? Who brought up some valid points about the pacing of the film and stuff like that that might be like completely legitimate. However, I agree exactly with what you're saying, that as an art piece or as a statement, that this film was about the Batman that is some dude that
Well, and like exactly like with what you're saying, and I hate to cut you off, but like that scene where Batman's just realizing he's like, oh my this is real life, and it's just the Riddler's video, and he's talking to a following. He has 500 people that are following him, and it's like, this is scarily do what?
okay, what I don't know what you were referring to at this moment.
So there's a scene in the movie where Batman like discovers this code. He types in this code and he's watching this video. And this video had already been uploaded, but Riddler has like this social media following of like 500 people,
Right.
right? And he has a community. And that's almost like, to me, that was like a scarily close representation of like
Yeah.
if it happened in real life, of in 2022, of if a serial
Yeah,
killer
yeah.
or if
Every
somebody who went off the rails decided to build some sort of like murder cult. And that was like exactly like you had the people in his, like you saw the comments like, oh yeah, like it was like, I don't know, it was crazy that they took that angle with it, but it was almost really really cool that that's how they chose to do it.
Yes, as I think going into the movie with the understanding that this is an attempt at encompassing this is the attempt at showing what vigilantism would look like most practically. And then maybe a bit hyped up because it's Batman and he's super rich and everything like that. But I mean,
Well, like,
I remember
exactly.
I remember everything about it seemed extremely practical and seemed extremely grounded. The Nolan Batman, there's this scene to where Batman's fighting with a bunch of the goons or whatever, and one of them just like falls over. You know what I'm talking about? He's fighting with
uh
like 7 people, and then because
I
people have said that the Christopher Nolan Batman was like super realistic and that it was the most realistic and everything like that.
I
And
mean, a lot
clearly,
of people like
there's no
Christopher Nolan's
comparison.
Batman. In my opinion, and I feel like this could be like
Well, do you know what
50.
I'm talking about, though?
No,
Do you know that?
I'm not familiar with the specific scene.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So Batman's fighting with like the goons or whatever, and he's like beating everybody up. But there's one guy on the screen that Batman doesn't like punch or anything. He just like falls over. And I mean, and so like, like that's something that this Batman never would have let slip. I mean, unless the
Well,
idea is that the goon just didn't want to get beat up and he fell over, which is an odd artistic
choice.
choice. But yeah,
Exactly. And kind of like what you were just saying, and I feel like this is like what we were mentioning earlier. The backlash, especially from the community, like it wasn't a huge amount of people, but and I've heard is because one of my friends had this opinion about it, is some people were saying that this Batman felt almost like weak or like and that it just wasn't like as badass as other Batman, or other movies. But in my opinion, the grounded nature of it, and that most of the fight scenes are pretty much close quarters, and it's just Batman doing his thing. Like in my opinion, Batman is a superhero, but he doesn't have any superpowers, so you can't really expect much out of somebody. Like there's, and this is what I will say, there's the one scene where he literally just comes crashing in through the windows of like the roof, and to me that was
right.
like that's badass. And then like in my mind, like I think for the future movies that in this series that come out, they'll improve on this aspect of. But for this movie, I give maybe a 9 or an 8 out of 10. Was like the fight scenes and some of the like combat and like just like action parts of the movie, because there was a lot of it. It just a lot of the times, like towards the end, it kind of felt like the whole
Go ahead.
do what?
Oh, go ahead. Yes.
So it's the moment where like the seawalls all collapse in and on itself and the vans blow up and he floods the city. That was a really cool moment. But if you've seen the Dark Knight trilogy, it kind of rings of like what Bane did to the football stadium in the Dark Knight Rises.
Oh, I suppose so. Yeah. Huh. Yeah. I mean, I didn't necessarily put that together, but well, yes, I just walked in. I just got home from work. Elijah, take the
Take the wheel.
Yes, please.
How's
Yeah,
everybody
yeah,
doing today?
yeah. Take the
I hope
wheel,
everybody's
Elijah.
having a
Yes.
wonderful day. Today I am enjoying a banana berry punch Escobar ripe alongside a bowl of you can bleep that out. Other than that, I am looking forward to my mother's wonderful dinner. She's preparing steak fingers. Was
Oh,
watching
wow.
some Bar Rescue earlier. John Taffer, funniest man alive. He rips those people to shreds. I mean, he's just.
I don't know what that is. I don't know what you're saying.
Oh, so are you familiar with Kitchen Nightmares? Like Gordon Ramsay goes in and screams at people because they suck at their job.